October 22, 2014, Michael Zihaf Bibo, a drug addict with a history of mental illness, recorded a cell phone testament in a Toyota parked outside the Prime Minister's office. He had just shot and killed a reservist at Ottawa's National War Memorial.
I think the shooting last fall at the heart of our city, impacted all of us in a way that we'd never experienced before. And I think because it hit home, it was real, and it really was a wake-up call maybe for a lot of people that their sense of security that this may happen here.
Only 2 days before, in a Montreal suburb, warrant officer Patrice Vincent was killed by a hit-and-run driver suspected of terrorist sympathies. Vincent's killer was shot dead by police.
People don't feel safe. They feel that terrorist activity can occur anywhere, whether it's here in Canada, the US, Australia, Europe. It happens, and it's more prevalent than it used to be. So I think that's fair, and there needs to be a response to that.
Zihaf Bibo, armed with a hunting rifle, quickly made his way up Parliament Hill. Inside the building, he was fatally shot by police. The incidents would be replayed as lawmakers warned terror was now a fact of life in Canada.
The fear of terrorism is an emotional issue, and it's easy to sway people based on their emotions, and it's a psychological game.
The issue of terrorism is foremost in the minds of Canadians. We have witnessed increased reports of terrorist actions not just at home, but around the world.
The rationale for it is the tragic death of 2 soldiers by 2 lone wolf would-be terrorists with mental health problems. When you start with a piece of legislation that impacts the freedoms and liberties of potentially thousands and thousands of Canadians, and the rationale for it is 2 isolated incidents by people who have mental health issues, it's little wonder that you end up with a law that's excessive and unnecessary.
Cabinet responded with Bill C-51, the Anti-Terrorism Act. It gives policing powers to Canada's spy agency, the Security Intelligence Service. The bill allows Cabinet to draw up a blacklist of Canadians forbidden from air travel and allows secret anti-terrorism hearings. It makes it a crime to write Facebook comments or YouTube videos that promoted terrorism.
Wait a second, this is capturing way more than I thought. I'm not a jihadist, I'm not a terrorist. Why are you looking at me? And that's the problem. This has the potential to do that.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-51 gives our law enforcement and security agencies all of the powers that are typically had across major Western governments to deal with the very real security threats.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is using Bill C-51 to attack our rights and freedoms while offering no proof that this law will actually protect Canadians.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me begin by saying that even in a debate as divisive as this one, there is one thing that all parties and all members have in common. We are all committed to keeping Canadians safe.
A bill that makes us less safe while destroying our Charter of Rights and Freedoms is quite an accomplishment, if one takes a dark view of things.
You're going to be looking over your shoulder before you express either in Facebook or on Twitter any kind of support, verbal or otherwise, or written or otherwise, for anything that might be perceived as a terrorist initiative or a terrorist threat.
What could happen to me?
Well, what could happen to you is if they think that you may be involved in something, you can be arrested, held for 7 days without even being charged. The kind of stuff that happened during the October crisis of 1970 is we're writing it into law. We're enabling it to happen right in Bill C-51. Certainly any of your electronic transmissions, your email address can be surveilled. Your internet service provider can be required to provide records of all of your communications.
Our lives more and more are going online, and that leaves all the more opportunity for our information that was put there legitimately, honestly, innocently, to be acquired by somebody who will make assumptions, who will put one piece of information that we put online together with a bit of information about us that might be incorrect, that was put there by someone else, and draw conclusions that are erroneous and make decisions on our behalf.
That what? I'm a terrorist?
Absolutely, because we are now judged on guilt by association.
At Senate committee hearings on Bill C-51, criminal lawyers warned that Cabinet had gone too far.
If oversight is enhanced to address many of the concerns that you've expressed, would that indeed allay most of your concerns?
Depends on the kind of oversight. I'm not. I'm generally an optimistic person, but I'm not holding out too much hope, Senator.
Well, in your appearances before our committees, I don't hold much concern for support either. But
well, let me say this: as someone who believes in limiting government power, you may accuse me of being conservative, which I'm not.
Don't worry about that.
I believe that if you're going to drastically expand state power to limit individuals' freedoms, you should have evidence to back it up. And I thought that was a conservative ideal.
It's essentially people saying things that would encourage terrorism. Now, we have provisions in the criminal code already, counseling offenses, that already cover this. What this offense does, though, is it broadens it, okay? So it has the ability to capture behavior in a much wider net than before. And I think what should be of concern to people is it could catch just about anyone.
The Supreme Court had already cited Parliament for breaking the law in the name of national security. MPs in 2001 passed a bill to have federal agents check the names of clients at every law firm in the country in the search for terrorist financing. The Federation of Law Societies waged a successful court battle to strike down the law as unconstitutional.
A little like when we go to the doctor. You don't expect the doctor to be just sharing whatever you happen to have shared with them every day. The same way that when we file our taxes, we expect that that information is going to be used strictly by those people at CRA or the tax authorities to manage the file and not be shared more publicly. Similar here. When you share that information with your lawyer, it's for the purpose of getting that advice and representation we provide. We expect, therefore, that the things that are confidential are going to stay confidential.
Supreme Court judges were unanimous. Parliament had passed a sweeping bill that was not only illegal, but ineffective. The government collected reports of 20 million financial transactions every year. So far, it had only one conviction for terrorist financing.
What had happened in this legislation was excessive, that what the government had chosen to do here was an unjustifiable infringement on those rights of the clients and, by extension, the lawyers.
Public surveillance was commonplace. In 1 year, federal agencies made more than 1 million requests for telecom subscribers' private information. It worked out to more than 3,000 requests a day, all without a search warrant. The Supreme Court said this, too, was illegal.
What's happened over the last 5 or 6 years is the government has introduced legislation which they knew or ought to have known would not withstand charter challenge. And they don't care. Let's be blunt about it. They don't care. They'll introduce it, they'll fight it and protect it all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, and then the Supreme Court of Canada knocks it down as being unconstitutional. And they're doing the same thing with Bill C-51. They don't care.
In the Commons, supporters cheered the passage of a new security law bill that went much further than legislation already struck down by the courts.
We're cheering about the misconception that this has made us more secure.
It makes me wonder what they're cheering about. It makes me wonder if the people who were cheering at their success in implementing C-51 recognize the impact to their very own lives.
What's the point?
The point is re-election. The point is re-election. And the point is re-election.
Do you need a law? Is there something in place already that exists that you can use? In other words, is it just for show?
Fear of terrorism saw more police at Parliament and more powers for federal agents. RCMP assigned 600 officers to anti-terror investigation. Collecting information on suspects would cost the government an estimated $100 million a year.
Ask yourself, read the legislation, read the provisions of the bill, and ask yourself, as a neutral person, is this the kind of society that I want to live in? This is where I want to raise my kids, What kind of democracy do we have?
Things are changing in Canada, absolutely, to protect security, ostensibly. I don't know that it's really protecting Canadians any better. It's certainly not improving the situation of their privacy or their right to privacy or their right to gain access to information.
There's a tradition in Canada, not of tolerance, it's a tradition of, it's not me, it's the guy down the street, he's a little different from me. Well, he must have done something wrong if they're taking him away. That's our tradition, that's our sad tradition.